Today's postcard is unique, certainly for me, because I've never been here in my life, and it's actually from the borough of Merton. What a surprise. The River Wandle has been harnessed for centuries as a means of powering the textile printing industry. Liberty's print works were based here, and William Morris brought his textile, tile and furniture manufacturing here in 1887. I asked the manager, John Hawkes, about the history of this site, and where better to start but at the local watering hole. Let's wander down, John, because you've got these buildings here. What were all these used for? Because this is now part of your MERTON Abbey Mills,
this big one is now the market hall, but it's called the Long Shop, and it is long. It's not a shop, it was a print shop, i.e. a printing house, and Liberty did his printed silk here. You had long tables with silk, and these people very painstakingly doing these blocks, beautiful hand-printed block, one after another, all in exactly the same place, beautiful designs, very laborious, very, very time-consuming. Not, of course, economic now, so they would import their silks now, and this factory was derelict, so we turned it into a market.
This looks older than those other buildings, which looks to the 1920s?
Absolutely right. This one is, I think, genuinely medieval. It dates back probably to the Merton Priory. You can tell that by the flint construction. But at any rate, we know that it goes back at least as far as 1720. And it was used, just this nice old medieval barn, used as a factory by, or part of the factory by Liberty's and by many other people as well. So it's had a rather unglamorous existence until now. And now it has been turned into a theatre.
Very glamorous.
A very glamorous and nice little theatre and concert hall, only a 70-seater, very intimate, and some brilliant productions put on. And again, people in Merton, people in Wimbledon, and tourists coming from miles around are beginning to discover this place. It's a really delightful little place.
Would it be called Fringe?
I would say mainstream fringe. How about that?
You just invented something. We'll go with that. The Wheelhouse.
That's over the other antique building, yes, and that probably dates back to the late 18th century. And it is, as it describes, it houses a magnificent water wheel, which is easily the best in London and quite probably the best in the south of England. The river Wandle, which is not well known, I don't think anyone's heard of the Wandle outside this borough, and probably many people inside this borough haven't heard of it, but it was a very famous river from the industrial point of view. It's too fast, it's too vigorous for navigation, but there were always lots of water wheels on it. Really? And even 150 years ago there might have been 200 water wheels just in a 15-mile stretch. There are still 4 or 5 left. This one is the one that goes. We've restored it, it goes round, and it does some very interesting things. Okay, it doesn't do what it used to do. Liberty used to use it for turning spools to rinse his printed silk in the river. Now the river's not quite as clean as it used to be, and there's no printed silk. But this water wheel does create electricity for us, a little amount, and it does drive, I think, probably uniquely, a potter's wheel and a lathe. So we are trying to introduce craft machines, again, with this water wheel driving.
Well, there's our cue. Let's take it. We're near a theatre, aren't we? On stage. And John, as forecast, here he is, doing his pottery.
Here he is. Steve has just completed an amazing record. He had what he calls a potathon, and he threw, I think it was over 700 pots in one day, Steve?
737 pots in 8 hours.
In 8 hours?
And we raised over £1,200 for the Royal Master.
Well, that's very good. And does it hurt your fingers doing all that pottering?
Unfortunately, I did ache for a short while afterwards, actually, yes.
I bet you did. Yeah. Well, Steve, we've got this wheel going around us, and John tells us that's powered by the river.
Yes, that's right. In fact, the river flows through just outside this wall here, which turns this wheel, which weighs some 12 tons. It powers my potter's wheel. There's a wood turning and a metal turning lathe. It also provides electricity for the lighting. And the next project we're engaging on is we're making a heat pump, which is like a refrigerator in reverse, and we're going to extract the heat from the river to actually heat this building.
So you're really making the River Wandle work. This is a bit of eco stuff, isn't it?
Very much into recycling, eco, and getting back to that sort of spirit of the craft of the last century in this wonderful old building, which is unique, and so is the person who operates the
Steve
water
certainly
wheel.
is. We'll let you keep doing your thumbs and things there. Stephen Llewellyn is carrying on a tradition of tile making started here by William Morris. But what about Merton Abbey? Where is Merton Abbey?
Underneath this road, which is very recently built, about during the last 10 years, is an extraordinary relic, because the whole of the land around where we're walking now was once probably the most important monastic house in the south of England outside London, Merton Priory. It founded Merton College, Oxford, which is why the name Merton.
Oh, that's where Merton comes from.
Yes, indeed. And there's an enormous thread of history here. I think Thomas à Becket was educated here, and the kings of England had their quarters here, their country quarters, their weekend quarters perhaps, down in Merton on the River Wandle. But what we have left of the priory is very, very little. Henry VIII saw to that in 1537. He did his business with the monasteries and dissolved them all. And all the stones from Merton Priory, from this huge abbey here, were taken down to build a palace at Nonsuch for him.
Right.
But so nothing really is left at all, and it was only when this area was being developed that they really completed the archaeology and found the outline of this huge church, which was as big as Westminster Abbey. I mean, 300 feet long. And
what have we got there now?
Now we've got the remains of the chapter house, which was, if you like, the sort of boardroom of the abbey, where the senior prelates met and managed the business of the abbey. And an enormous abbey, an enormous amount of business it must have been. We are in a building this size, and it's a pretty big building, but next to it would have been this enormous cathedral-like church, where now this huge hypermarket stands. And we are under the A24, the main road, and we're in a place, just to prove that it's a historic place. Here's a list of dates. Don't bother to look at them all, but kings of England actually were here and held court here in this funny little room under the road.
Now, look at this one. Peace conference held between Henry III and Louis, Dauphin of France.
Yes, it sounds...
Eleanor of Provence, Henry III's queen, was crowned here.
Yes,
I find this incredible.
Yeah, it all happened here.
Henry VI.
He was crowned at Merton Priory, presumably in the building rather than in the church rather than the building we're in. But this was an important building because
words. This is a big surprise. It's a good surprise.